So I want to give you a technique to polish the skin of your model, and that will help to eliminate in some circumstances errors, some little spots, red areas, but also just to give your model that sort of intense glow, kind of over beautification, the sort of things that you see in extremes in perfume adverts, and then very, very subtly on the front covers of magazines. These days it's used at a very low level, but it's still there. So basically what I'm doing is I'm using the model's own skin to support the smoothing technique. And what I need to do is, if you think about it this way, really all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a blur on. So either a Gaussian blur is really, really nice, or under noise you have something called median, a median noise. It gives you a more blocky feel to it, and it just depends on what effect you're after, which one you want to use. So I'm just going to use a Gaussian effect. And you actually really want to really overdo it because we're going to tone it down in the opacity. And then what we're doing is we're working between the layers, so you can see the other layer coming through. But of course I need to keep some areas really, really sharp. And I could just work on this photograph. I could just take the eraser tool, make sure it's a nice soft eraser tool, and I could work my way around the image, just sort of clarifying the areas that I want to keep vivid and sharp. But of course, once I've done that, let's do a couple of areas. So I want to keep this area and maybe the mouth sharp. Now, once I've done that, unfortunately, I have an image with holes in it. So I can't change my mind. And if I've added in too much, so let's just go back, overdo it. And then if I'm going to zoom in and I see areas that I want to fix, it's too late. I've eliminated them. But there's nothing to actually stop you just doing it in a really, really simple way, like that. So the second approach might be to just simply add a mask in that case. So I can add a mask, and instead of working in the image, I could work in the mask itself. And in fact, what I could do is, before I do anything, I could apply the blur, but that's going to make it hard to see the areas that I really want to mask. So I'm going to make sure I'm in the mask, and I'll turn the image off underneath so that I can see what I'm doing. And I can just draw into the mask. And I'm not going to make a really good job of it because this wouldn't be my final choice of method anyway. But there's nothing wrong with this. This is a perfectly good way to go about. Then of course I would zoom in and do it properly. So this is perfectly useful way to do it. Okay, and then I'm going to apply the blur. We'll just go with a Gaussian blur again, the same sort of Gaussian blur. Turn the image on underneath, and then I decide just how strong I want that blur to be. And if you want it to be very, very subtle, it's still there. Or if you wanted it to be markedly different, you push the opacity level towards opaqueness. And you can see the difference. Now, because it's in a mask, I can change my mind. So I can come into the mask and decide that I want to add her hair, and I want to have her hair sharp. So I can come over here and either at full strength, or of course I can reduce the opacity on my erase tool and decide just how sharp. Maybe it's only parts of the hair that I want to stay sharp. And you decide whether you want the background sharp or blurred as well. So because I've got a mask, I can do all of those things in one go. The third route is simply to take what's called a quick mask. Now, quick masks just allow you to create a selection, and they're really a preamble towards putting on a full mask. And what quick mask allows you to do is to then paint in. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm back at 100%. Quick mask allows you to paint. So I can paint the areas that I would like to stay sharp with paintbrush or the eraser, and so on. So I'm just going to quickly do this. So I painted in the areas that I want to stay sharp, and then you just go back to the quick mask box again and click to edit in standard mode. What it does is it leaves behind a selection. So that's just like using it's like using the type mask tool with topography, which we did last week. Now, that then allows me to apply a normal mask. Okay, so I can see the work that I've done, and I can still make amendments in the mask. So the reason I wanted to show you quick mask was because in the future you may want to be doing quite a detailed construction. So quick mask allows me to come in and paint what I would like to withhold in the mask. So I can use painting tools, as you've seen, or the eraser tool. Let's just come over here and use the painting tool. Now, you can decide the level of opacity of the brush as well. So at the moment, this is fully going to hold back the hair, and I can decide exactly where that's going to go. I can use the softness of a brush, or I could choose a different type of brush. I could choose a harder brush. And what it also allows me to do is to come into the other tools, and let's say I wanted to make a selection. And another way to do this would also be to use the pen tool and then to turn that into a selection. And I'm just going to hit delete. If it goes the wrong way, remember X on your keyboard, we'll flip it over and we've got a selection here. So this has got a very hard edge because, or an edge with a 2 pixel feather. I'd be very wary about adding in deeper feathers. Once you start getting above 5, you're kind of eliminating the actual construction, so it gets very soft very, very quickly. So you could literally come in and do sections of it like this. It's not really necessary for this particular image, because actually that nice softness is good. But you can see I could pick out particular things to remain sharp. If I decided I wanted this to be very, very significantly sharp, I could come in and actually, let's just come here, delete. So you can see I'm revealing the quick mask as I go along. But really, for the purpose of this demonstration, that soft brush is really, really good. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm painting with the soft brush into the hair. And then I come in, zoom right in, and change the size of your brush to eliminate the bits that you would like to stay sharp. Always give yourself a bit of a snot gutter, and we want to keep the mouth sharp as well. So you're just painting everywhere that you want to stay sharp. And if it's, so I'm going to make a bit of a mess of this. It's absolutely fine, and you'll see it doesn't make a huge amount of difference for this technique. Clearly eyebrows are very important, so keep them sharp and don't go too wild. So you know, you want the skin around them to be very, very softened. Eyelashes too, very, very important. So we'll keep those sharp. And so on. One thing just to be aware of when you are using this technique, so I've got brushes over here, and then I'm drawing a line to get this a little bit sharper over here. Not necessary, but I'm just showing you it for the demonstration purposes. And then if I hit the delete key, let's just get rid of it first of all. I'll just show you it there. Just watch out for this, because I've got a feather on the selection. It can leave you a bit of damage. So for the purposes of this, it's really a brush we need to work with, and maybe for some of the finer details you could come in with your selection tools. So Quick Mask allows me to get in there, create the selection that I want using any of the selection tools and the brushes and the erasers and so on. Then click to come out of Quick Mask and put on a proper mask, or delete from your image if you're confident. Make sure you're then working on your image. Decide what sort of blur you want to work with. I'm going to put on a median. And remember what I said, you can really push it. Depends a lot on the size of your actual image, just how far you might want to do that. Because we're going to turn underneath on, and then we use opacity to drop it down. Now the additional things that I'd like to show you are that you should also consider working with blends. So think about what happens when you apply a blend, and that gives her a sort of sun kiss. It loses the softening, loses the polishing, but it does give her a very sun-kissed look. So I could once again copy and blur. Something like lighten, makes it look quite ghostly, but you'll get some really beautiful glows as the skin from underneath comes through. So you need to experiment with that. And white skin is obviously very different to dark skin. So you'll find with dark skins, the orange tones are going to start coming through, and particularly when you're using any of the burning tools, and you want to create. I want to have a look through and see what variations you can create. With white skin, I can come down to luminosity, and I get quite a beautiful illusion of light coming through her skin. So just experiment with those, but there are key ones: luminosity, overlay, the lightning tones, and if you want to give her a suntan, you can give her some of the dark tones. And then on dark skins, the lightning will pull the oranges, the warm oranges from the dark tones through.